What's up, Buckeye Junior High? Thanks so much for the shout out today. And get this, I grew up just down the road in Northeast Ohio. Gotta love the Buckeye State. I'm Keith Kosinski. Let's do this. First up, the Department of Justice will now look into whether or not the FBI used a secret agent to spy on the Trump presidential campaign. On Twitter, President Trump demanded an investigation into reports the FBI planted an informant into his presidential campaign. The reports say an FBI informant was instructed to make contact with at least 3 Trump campaign advisors, Carter Page, George Papadopoulos, and Sam Clovis, after the Bureau learned they had suspicious contacts with Russian officials. Papadopoulos has pleaded guilty in the Russia probe and is cooperating with authorities. A few hours after the president's tweet, the Justice Department asked its internal watchdog to investigate whether there was any impropriety. And Deputy Attorney General Rod Rosenstein said, if anyone did infiltrate or surveil participants, we need to know about it. But critics of the president are blasting him for making the demand, saying it's inappropriate because the Department of Justice works independently from the White House. And did you catch words in the news? Informant is a person who secretly provides information about criminal activity to another person or police. Okay, the old saying goes, if you want to do great things, then don't be afraid to fail. Just about every successful person, whether in business, politics, or acting, will tell you that they failed along the way and use that failure to learn. But in today's society, failure is an ugly word, one that students fear and desperately avoid. Asia Celestino met with some teens who are facing their fear of failure and finding peace without perfection.
Jake Ryan has been enjoying his freshman year at the University of North Carolina, Chapel Hill, balancing classes with fun activities like going to school basketball games and hanging with new friends.
In college, you have to be very disciplined to get yourself to study.
Would you consider yourself type A?
Yeah, I'm definitely type A. In high school especially, there's often classifying people like, oh, you're the smart person, you're the funny person, and me as myself, I classified myself as the smart person, and that's how I was known by most people, oh, Jake will get 100 on the test.
Back in high school, Jake had a full schedule that included advanced placement classes, cross-country practice, and serving as the president of the Model United Nations.
I didn't want to see myself as a failure. Not doing well on the tests was a failure, and it seems like something that's not that big of a deal, but for me that was almost like a knock on me as a person.
His achievements looked great on paper, but the possibility of failing weighed heavy on Jake.
I just stopped going to everything, and all of a sudden I couldn't go to school. I wasn't able to really get up in the morning. It was just, the anxiety was too much. Everything was too much.
He often had intense headaches and stomach pain, and was later diagnosed with depression and anxiety. Everyone has goals around school, relationships, money, and along with those goals come temporary feelings of stress, fear, or anxiety. But those with an anxiety disorder experience an extreme reaction with emotional and physical symptoms that affect everyday life. Over the last decade, Stanford and Harvard researchers coined the term failure deprived to describe dedicated students who have difficulty coping with everyday setbacks. Students who are afraid to fail are connected with an increase in extreme stress, anxiety, and depression, and a higher demand for mental health and counseling services on college campuses.
I've been hospitalized 3 times. The last time, my parents were like, okay, we're gonna send you someplace where you can get help.
That place was Mountain Valley in New Hampshire, a nonprofit treatment center for teens struggling with anxiety disorders.
Kids have been getting more anxious, the anxiety's been getting more intense, and they've just generally been coping with it more poorly.
Sarah Hazelton is a therapist for Mountain Valley. Like Jake, many of the teens she works with are high achievers who haven't actually failed, but are still extremely afraid of the risk and disappointment associated with failure.
A lot of our students that have had issues with social media, overusing it, they hold themselves to a high standard that's really not reasonable for them to meet. And for them to be able to give themselves permission to not be perfect is really, really intolerable for them.
At Mountain Valley, teens get a combination of group counseling, yoga and meditation, art, and therapy outdoors. But one of the most important treatments is something called exposure therapy.
Putting themselves in a situation that makes them uncomfortable voluntarily, and then letting them just sit with it until they realize, I'm okay.
Talking about college and the fear of failure, that was difficult. So basically what they had me do was walk up to strangers and try to strike up a conversation like, man, I wish I got in here, but I failed. I'm just not good enough, I guess, to get in here. I never really got like a bad response. People were always like, oh, that's okay. It really showed that people don't really care too much like what you put on yourself.
One of my core beliefs is I'm a failure, and so that's one I've been working with a lot. For an exposure, I might go and take a test and purposely get questions wrong.
This Mountain Valley teen asked us not to use her real name. We followed her on an off-campus exposure as she went on a school tour and had an admissions interview.
Has this experience also helped you to see some beauty in failing?
I think that's something that I'm working on and I'm still trying to work on. There's a balance, I guess I would say. And it's important to say, yeah, I don't want to fail at this, but at the same time recognize if I do, it's not the end of the world.
They really learn the concept that they can feel anxious and still be okay. Truth be told, people do judge you. The likelihood is they are. It might be happening right now. And so instead of hiding from it, being able to sort of accept that, yeah, that's gonna happen.
I think I've really have come a long way. However, I think I can't really see how far I've come until I'm back, in the real world.
For Jake, life after therapy is still a work in progress, but he's learned how to accept failure and see things in a different light.
I really love learning, but I try to make sure that my love of learning is different from wanting to be seen as a smart person. And I've kind of realized now that the things that make me the happiest were never perfection, were never being the smartest. It was the time I spent with friends and the experiences I did have.
Asia Celestino, Channel 1 News.
I definitely agree with Jake on that one. Thanks for the story, Asia. Now, if you're interested in learning more about some other failure programs across the country, check out Asia's blog post on channel1.com. All right, when we come back, a stellar story of the art behind seeing the stars.